Ahoy gang, and welcome back to Arcly Overcast. So, the other day I was watching the greatest movie ever made, Terminator 2 of course, for the batrillionth time in my life. Now, we all know the Terminator movies are crammed full of all different kinds of guns, but while I was watching it I had a sudden urge to make a video about some of the guns used in Resident Evil that I also noticed are in Terminator 1 and 2, but mostly 2. Alright, so to start this thing off, flashback with me to the very beginning. The first ever gun that we're introduced to in the Resident Evil universe is none other than the Beretta M92 Fs 9mm. Because of that, every time I see one of these, it just takes me back to these first moments of the mansion incident, like a breath of fresh air. This Beretta was apparently standard issue for the RPD Stars and would eventually become the Stars Custom Samurai Edge, starting with the original Resident Evil 3. The Beretta M92 Fs can be seen in Terminator 2 when the T-Butt-Naked 1000 arrives, gut checks this cop, and takes his piece, his uniform, and his car. The Beretta M92 Fs is the first of many guns the T-1000 would use to try and kill John Connor. Now, going right back to the T-1000, this scene in the hospital where he gablobbles through the metal bars, he's hijacked another officer's handgun, which this time happens to be a Browning high-power Mk3. If you remember in the original Resident Evil 2, the Browning HP Mk3 is Claire's primary handgun, which she finds in the glove box of the cop car just before zombie Leon jumps out of the back seat and attacks live Leon. Now, Claire doesn't start off with the Browning HP in the RE2 remake, but it can be found and used later in that game, and it can also be seen being used by Marvin. The H&K MP5 feels like the poster child of 80s and 90s action movie guns, and it's also one of the more abundant guns seen in Resident Evil. Starting with Hunk's team, in Resident Evil 2, this 9mm submachine gun proved highly ineffective against Big Daddy G. Birkin. Also in Resident Evil 2, during the rooftop battle of the RPD, the MP5 also proves ineffective against 2 zombies, but highly effective against a helicopter. In Resident Evil 3, the RPD SWAT team uses MP5s against the zombie hordes, but once again, ineffective. When will they ever learn to stop using 9mm against zombies, or anything really? Likewise in Terminator 2, the LAPD SWAT team uses an army of MP5s against a Terminator when they tried to drop him. Tried being the key word. But just like Hunk's team and the RPD SWAT, the LAPD SWAT immediately regretted their decisions to use the MP5. This next one is kind of a special trifecta gun for me. It's more of a Terminator 1 gun, but I have been in love with this shotgun since Jurassic Park, and that is the Spaz 12 shotgun. While the Nader pretty much annihilates an entire police station with it in Terminator 1, we can also see Claire Redfield pick up the old Robert Muldoon special in Resident Evil Code Veronica.
Clever girl.
This next one is sort of brief, but I felt like it was worth mentioning. My all-time favorite Magnum from the Resident Evil games is, of course, the classic Colt Python from the original Resident Evil 1. To me, it's always been the funnest gun to use, and I just love the way it looks. The Colt Python can also be seen in Terminator 1, after the car chase scene when this officer is looking in the empty cop car the Terminator was driving. Now going back to shotguns, I was the ripe old age of 4 when Sarah Connor showed me how to properly pump a pump-action shotgun. Yup, just like that. This bad boy she's got right here is a Remington 870 with a folding stock. Now, in Resident Evil 2, Leon uses a Remington 870 with a pistol grip, but it clearly doesn't have the wood finish forend or the folding stock. However, look again at the Resident Evil 3 Battle of Cops vs. Zombies, and you'll see this particular Remington 870 being used by a few members of the RPD. Fewer upon fewer things in this world are cooler than watching Arnold deal colossal damage with a grenade launcher, especially when he uses it to finally take out the T1 Butthole 1000. What an epic defeat, am I right? Now, this grenade launcher is the M79 Grenade Launcher, and Fortunately for us, we have the absolute pleasure of wielding the M79 as Claire in Resident Evil 2, Original and Remake. That's right, give those turds the T-1000 treatment. Alright, I was kinda torn about this one, because I know it's not exact, but I figured it was close enough. Now there are several different 1911s used throughout Terminator 2. This one specifically is a Colt Series 7D D-Tonics hybrid, and even though it's not exact, we can still see the Colt 1911 in Resident Evil Outbreak as Kevin Ryman's primary handgun, and in the Resident Evil 2 remake in Leon's second scenario. Ah ha ha! Time to bring out the big guns. This is one of the most brutally beautiful scenes of Terminator 2. The M134 minigun used here is just a therapeutic masterpiece of a weapon. Not that I've ever fired one, but I can definitely imagine. I mean, can't you? Luckily, Resident Evil 2 and 3 have a similar Gatling gun at our disposal, which is incredibly fun to use. But what really took the cake is when the Resident Evil 2 remake so graciously provided the M134 minigun to help us defeat the big boss. Who knows why Umbrella had one of these bad boys just sitting around in their lab? But who cares? It's there, it's free, and it's fun, so celebrate it by taking it and using the crap out of it. And for me, using the minigun against big freak nasty Daddy G Birkin was enough to make me smile like Uncle Bob.
Uncle Bob?
Alright, so this last one is definitely not a one-to-one comparison, but it is definitely my favorite, and was the main inspiration for this video, so I just had to include it. My all-time favorite shotgun has always been Terminator's Winchester 1887 lever-action 12-gauge. Being a kid, watching Arnold point, shoot, and reload like this was just mind-exploding. So imagine how I felt, being a kid, playing the original Resident Evil 3, and discovering the similar Western custom M37 lever-action 12-gauge. Now, you have to defeat Nemesis several times throughout the game, and he'll eventually drop the parts you need to combine to create the Western custom, but it's totally worth it. And according to imfdb.org, the Western Custom M37 in the game is actually a Winchester 1892 44 Magnum Mare's Leg, which, if that's the case, the developers of Resident Evil 3 must have adapted the Winchester 1892 into the Western Custom M37 to pay homage to the greatest movie ever made. You know it, because Jill even does the classic Terminator 2 reload maneuver.
Excellent.
Which is just one of the many things that makes this game so special. And in my opinion, should have been one of the many things put in the Resident Evil 3 remake. Well, that's it for now. I know I didn't cover every little detail about this topic. This was more like a summary about it, but I'd love to hear from you. So please feel free to leave me some comments, and if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and until another day!